How it started,
small fringe minority,
versus how it's going.
The largest convoy, by the time it had reached Ottawa, was 40 kilometers long and had thousands of vehicles.
The massive occupation. The events represent a paradigm shift in public protest.
That clip is from the Emergencies Act inquiry that happened this Thursday. Here's a CBC article. Battle lines drawn as the Emergencies Act inquiry gets underway in Ottawa. Documents introduced at the inquiry will tell quite the story, lawyers say. Thanks, CBC. And I just wanted to quickly make this video to remind you what a farce this is. This is the question. Was the Emergency Act justified? If you have to ask, the answer is no. People know what an emergency looks like. Does this look like an emergency? How about this? What about that? If you have to ask, the answer is no. So, yes, it was so urgent, it was such an emergency that it took them over 2 weeks. Yes, it was so urgent, it was such an emergency that it took them over 2 weeks to say, you know what, we need to call the Emergencies Act. And by the way, by the time they actually called this Emergencies Act, the thing happening in Windsor had been broken up and the thing happening in Coutts, Alberta had been broken up. So that argument that they're using, no, sorry, those two demonstrations at the border were already broken up by the time they called the Emergencies Act in Ottawa. So yeah, your case is not looking good. Not sure why we need over 120 witnesses to explain the obvious to the country. But then again, there are so many lies that the Canadian establishment has thrown at the trucker convoy to the point where people who watch CBC or read CBC or CTV or Global News regularly, they hate convoy people. Thanks, CBC, for fomenting hatred against people who, I don't know, just want bodily autonomy, which is what many people have back now. And I would argue thanks to the trucker convoy, thanks to people standing up. And I just found it funny watching it today. We had the OPP police force, the Ottawa police force, talking about how big this protest was and, you know, we had to get all of our team together to stop it. Did you try talking to the protesters? You see, the way a protest works is the people who show up, they all have something that they want to accomplish. They all have a reason that they're protesting, and they want to talk to public officials about it to see if they can get that changed.
Solve the mandates.
Protest the mandates.
It's about freedom, man. It's about ending mandates.
So did you try, did the concept of talking to the protesters, did that cross your mind during these 14 days before stomping people with police horses? Did that pass through anyone's skull at any point whatsoever? How are we going to get these protesters out of here? They want to end mandates and they want people to get their jobs back for simply not complying with a medical procedure that they didn't think was a good decision for them. So instead of engaging with these protesters, you spent easily millions of dollars on extra police forces to stomp out anyone who believes in bodily autonomy. In a way, you hung out the people of Ottawa to dry and said, hey, you're going to have to put up with this because we are not going to talk to them. We don't want to hear what they have to say. But as a reminder to Canadians who may have been bludgeoned and brainwashed into believing that we don't have freedom in this country anymore, yeah, we're supposed to be in a democratic society where protests are valued by politicians and they might listen to them. This did not happen. This did not happen for 14 days. And that's when they decided, yeah, you know what? This is an emergency. We can't have these people sitting out here because we look like chumps. So let's stomp them out. There was no violence. There was no arson. All of these lies surrounding this. There was a literal false flag the first day, which was the only thing that hit the news media. But you didn't hear from the truckers on TV. You didn't hear from the people attending it on TV. You didn't hear about the thousands upon thousands of people that got laid off because of mandates. You didn't hear about any of that. But I really can't emphasize enough how much of a farce and circus that this inquiry is. And many people might be thinking, oh, this is our chance for justice and to see how the freedom fighters are right. Don't hold your breath, guys. They're just going to use this inquiry as an excuse to bury us with lies. Have more and more people take the stand, lie. And then the newspaper will take those lies, put it in a big basket and say, hey, look at this big basket of lies. Don't you hate these people?
We will always stand with Canadians, make sure that they are free from harassment and hateful actions and speech.
Est-ce qu'on tolère ces
We know that the Emergencies Act wasn't justified, and we know that this regime has authoritarian ambitions. And the trucker convoy is not the only example of that. It was just the worst example of that. So especially if you're a freedom fighter type and you're holding out that this inquiry is going to be the big day, don't hold your breath. This is the Canadian regime we're dealing with. The same regime that stomped people with police horses, shot us with grenade guns and all that fun stuff because, why? Because the government wouldn't talk to us. This idea that's like some truthful moment is just going to come out. Guys, don't count on it. And I mean, the guy that was representing the people, he says he represents Freedom Corp or something.
Counsel to Freedom Corp, which is an organization that represents the protesters.
That's weird, man. Because guys, the question shouldn't be, was the Emergency Act justified? Was Tamara Litch getting thrown in jail justified? Was it justified for Jeremy McKenzie and Morgan May being thrown in jail multiple times? No, we know the answer to this question already, guys. So why are we thinking that this trial is going to give us some revelation? The real question that we should be asking is, how the heck do these politicians get away with dismissing us, dehumanizing us, and not even listening to us? They're right. We did occupy the city of Ottawa, and they still didn't listen. We have a problem here. We definitely have a problem here because we have an authoritarian regime acting like an authoritarian regime, but saying, hey, no, we voted this. This is democracy, bro. That's the problem. And that's the little charade that they're keeping alive with this little inquiry into the Emergencies Act. Yes, we are prestigious. We're looking into the facts. And by the way, the tone of some of this EMA hearing is very disturbing. You'll hear people talking about, we need to make sure this never happens again. Oh, so we can never protest against the federal government ever again? Canadians need to be very careful of where this trial is headed and what conclusions people might come up with. So I know this inquiry might be exciting for a lot of people, but don't just sit on the couch and think that this is moving the needle, okay? There's a lot of work to be done in this country. A lot. So let's get to it. Speaking of which, if you're new here, like, share, subscribe. If you've been here for a while, check out my Patreon for behind the scenes content. Free Jeremy McKenzie, and we will talk to you very soon.